hate losing. If you lose by 2, you lose by 100, it don't matter. You're still losing. And offensively, we got to find ways to score before the half and score after the half. So we didn't do our part either.
Be able to throw for 3 TDs and run for 3, and you still can't get the W from the offensive standpoint.
Got to make one more play than they do, however it may be. So again, it was a total team loss, 3 phases. We feel like we didn't play up to our standard. It starts with me.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy Monday. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That was Josh Allen at the top of the show. He drinks for free because he scored the most fantasy points by a quarterback in single game in NFL history.
NFL history. Better than Michael Vick.
But he said he had to be better.
Better than Michael Vick's game against my Washington. I was in the stands for that game. That was a tough game. I flew down from Monday Night Football, saw Michael Vick eviscerate us. Better than Peyton Manning's 7-touchdown game against the Ravens as well. The number 1 fantasy game by a quarterback, single game in NFL history. Proud fantasy life investor, by the way, Josh Allen. Thank you very much. Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, we're thrilled to have him on the cap table is all I'm saying.
Should be.
We are thrilled to have him on the cap table. You look at George Blanda with those stupid 49.7 points. It's nothing, Connor.
That's definitely a Big Show stat, I feel like. A George Blanda fantasy
Obviously.
poll. Nice job, Big Show.
And look at Mark Rippon showing up.
Is that his son who played for the Broncos the other year?
That is his nephew.
Yeah,
okay.
Brett Rippon, yeah.
Yep.
But Mark Rippon is a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
There you go.
Matthew, what were your thoughts when that Michael Vick howitzer was just floating through the air as you're sitting in the stands? We probably felt like it was in the air for 20 minutes.
There was a sinking feeling like, oh God, what have I done? Because I dragged Connor, my son that's now at Alabama. I dragged at the time. I take that back. No, it was David. Actually, it was my oldest son, David. I dragged him. He was like 12 at the time. I dragged David there, and we were with our friends my friend Gary and his son Owen. They're big Eagles fans, and so I'm there with 2 Eagles fans, and we're just like, oh God, this is once again the Washington, just melting down on Monday Night Football. But enough about that. It was awful just to be in the stands, and then it rained, and the whole thing sucked. But I'll tell you what was great, and I know it's a tough loss for the Bills, but fantasy-wise, in Week 14, this is win or go home week for so many people, including our own Connor Rogers, Jay.
Did you lose?
No, according to Pete yesterday morning, it's wrapped up.
Oh, yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Backup producer
I'm not
Pete,
talking about the game until it's over, by the way.
which is smart.
And I'm not saying a word.
Yeah, no.
But it's been over since yesterday about 9 a.m.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
That tweet, I don't save a ton of tweets. That tweet's printed out on my kitchen room table right now.
We will dive into that as well, but make no mistake about it. Josh Allen legitimately carrying playoff fantasy teams into the playoffs on his back, just nothing short of amazing. As you saw there in the question, if you heard there, second player in NFL history with 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in the same game. Otto Graham did it in 1954.
Were you there for that one?
Oh, I was there. Oh yeah, I was there for that game as well. It was I was 24. Please. What's been nice though is that one of the reasons why Josh Allen was more or less the consensus number 1 player in fantasy picked in all drafts. He was the number 1 player picked in our draft. Picked by me, thank you very much. Take that, Denny Carter. I pretty much was able to beat Denny with Josh Allen alone. I could have benched everyone and only started Josh Allen, and I think could have taken care of Denny. I don't know that there's a big fantasy takeaway here. The biggest one to me, the 2 big ones for me, obviously. I mean, he was awesome, and we'll get to the Rams side of the ball, which I think is a little more interesting. But to me, the 2 biggest things was, first off, the continued usage of Khalil Shakir. He's had only 2 games this year with single-digit fantasy points. He's been double-digit every single week. Since Week 7, he's the 22nd best wide receiver in fantasy football. We weren't sure what his usage would be like once Amari Cooper came back. No Keon Coleman in this one, but still, they were, and no Dalton Kincaid, so it's still a little unsure. But again, just the consistency, he seems to be earning a lot of trust, obviously, with Josh Allen. And then also, really nice game here for Amari Cooper. Season highs in target share, 38%, and receiving yards, he had 95. It's his best fantasy game since his trade to Buffalo for Amari Cooper. 14 targets in this one, his most, more than he had in the previous 4 games combined. Now, again, there was a shootout game. It was crazy. I mean, this is a game that was, what was it, 42-44? So I don't know that you expect this all the time, but I thought those were two really positive signs.
The target share for Cooper is just such a big one because we've been wondering, can you keep riding this out and hoping with Amari Cooper? And this is a good sign that you can. And like you said, Matthew, the script. Now they play they play at Detroit, which hopefully it's hard to say will follow this script, but Detroit you think you'd rather throw against than run against, depending on what defenders are healthy and not. Josh Allen, crazy things should stay going for him because of what that Detroit offense will also do to them.
Yeah, definitely. And look, the Rams' defense isn't very good, but the last 4 weeks of the season, Allen gets Detroit, who don't have any players left on defense.
But they can score.
Yeah, and their defense is in such a bad spot that Dan Campbell's going for it on 4th and 1 when he's well within field goal range because he doesn't think that his team can stop Jordan Love from getting 40 yards. And then after that, Patriots twice, and the Jets, and none of those teams have good pass defenses. So, yes, Allen's probably not going to be in shootouts against the Patriots.
The Jets might be healthier by week 17, but also their season may be over. Their season is over.
The season is over.
Right.
What you need Rodgers to play like he did this weekend, where you're in a shootout, and that's not a guarantee. The New England game does scare me a little bit because I think the Bills win comfortably, almost maybe too comfortably.
Yeah.
You want them to be challenged, where Allen is just in this crazy drop back script where he's either running or constantly throwing all on his own, and you're not going to get over 50 fantasy points, but can you get 30 during the playoffs? I don't know if a New England matchup will offer that opportunity. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, you might get 30 against Detroit because this game is going to be super explosive. Allen, again, indoors against a very suspect pass defense, just with the amount of injuries that they have. So it's all set up for him to go off again and potentially wrap up MVP with a big win in Detroit.
The only negative to this game, it was awesome all the way around, is James Cook, just a tough game. 6 for 20 on the ground, 2 for 9. Josh Allen gets 3 rushing touchdowns all from the 1-yard line, and the passing touchdown to a running back goes to Ty Johnson, not James Cook. I think just a tough day. I mean, James Cook has been getting so much usage in close. I would normally panic, but because he's been used so much this year in that role, I think it was just one of those, in that particular situation, again, they're right on the one, and Josh Allen's like, screw it, I'm going to take it myself.
Yeah, and that's like he's getting Saquon Barkley, he's getting DeAndre Swifted from last year now, where when they get to the one, Allen is just ramming it in. And it was an indicator of how much they believe in that play by the fact that they stupidly went for it at the end of the game and had to burn their timeout, so they couldn't just play defense on the final drive. So yeah, they clearly believe in it. I mean, Allen has to be just about the best quarterback ever in short yardage. Jalen Hurts as well, but Allen, even if he gets 4th and 2, 4th and 3, is still a weapon. So yeah, it's going to be something that they continue to do, and Allen gets the 3 rushing touchdowns.
He's like Auburn Cam Newton, but at the NFL level, which is
stop him.
Which is just out of this world.
Auburn, can't, but with accuracy. He's Cam Newton, but with accuracy.
Truly, he's more accurate.
Yeah.
And even though he misses a couple throws yesterday, he makes up for them with just insane
the combination
plays.
as well. The one big run that he had where he's doing the hesitation moves, because the thing is, like, Jalen Hurts is big and powerful. He's not particularly quick or shifty. Allen is dancing around and has speed and power. He's the complete package at the moment. I think with the way that Mahomes is, and I don't want to say Mahomes has fallen off because he's probably just going to go win the Super Bowl again, but I think Allen is playing at the highest level of anyone at the moment.
Right. Well, you could argue who does more for their team, and there's just scripts for the Bills where he's Superman.
It's him and Lamar.
They were down 38-21 going into the fourth quarter. They gave up 24. The Bills gave up 24 points in the first half. Josh Allen took it, because he's the leader of the team and he did what he should do at the podium. But that was on the defense. That loss was on the defense.
No, the defense isn't very good. That's the sneaky secret with Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean they're going to have to outscore teams. Yeah. It's going to be really interesting. I don't know that there's a team in the AFC where the defense you feel great about. I mean, the Ravens struggle on secondary. The Chiefs have I get that they play.
Chiefs defense isn't good.
No,
now
exactly.
they've dealt with injuries.
Yeah.
And
people will think the Chiefs defense is good because of last night, but no Lad McConkey, no Will Dissly for the second half. No J.K. Dobbins on a team that wasn't that great offensively to begin with. Meaning the Chargers.
Denver's the defense.
Denver and the Steelers. But the Steelers have
Denver, the Steelers. That's true.
They do. They absolutely do. But those teams, not the Steelers, but the Broncos, you just wonder if they ever find themselves in a shootout script. Will they keep up with the great quarterbacks?
I think they're the favorite, but I'm not convinced Denver makes the playoffs. Their schedule coming up is really tough.
And Miami got a really big win yesterday in overtime against the Jets, which kept them alive.
Yeah. They're 2 games back of Denver, so they need but Denver's schedule the rest of the way is really tough. They got to go at Cincinnati. They play Kansas City in Week 18.
Chargers.
They play the Chargers on a short week. They're playing at the Chargers on a Thursday night, after the Indy game. They come out of the bye. They play the Colts. The Colts will be off the bye too. That's not a gimme. And then they've got to go on 3 days rest to LA for the Chargers game.
Yeah. It's all about the Colts game. If they win that game, they should be in. If they lose that, then the Colts have the tiebreak over them, and then it's neck and neck. And the Colts, by the way, they finished with Tennessee, the Giants, and the Jags. They may well run the slate.
On the Rams side of it, this was the real interesting fantasy impact here, Matthew, in terms of just Puka Nacua's targets. 14, he catches 12 of them. He was unstoppable in this game. How about 5 rush attempts and the additional rushing touchdown?
He was, and by the way, those catches, they were some brilliant catches, like on the sideline, toes in. Like, this wasn't just like, hey, they left him open and it was just, cheap volume.
Right.
Like, he earned these catches. He looked good. And I'll tell you, I was going to say one of the toughest things. It's not going to be tough to rank Puka Nacua next year because he's going to be very, very high. But the question is Puka Nacua the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy next year? It's probably Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson still, but
that's tier 1, those 3 guys.
He's right there. The question is going to be the injuries, but that's going to be a fascinating discussion this offseason is how high do you take Nacua next year, because he is all that in a bag of chips.
Kyren Williams, 29 carries, huge volume here. Only 87 yards, but he gets the 2 touchdowns, most importantly.
And he does as well. And so, the Rams are a really nice team fantasy-wise because it's very concentrated. It's Nacua and Kupp. It's Kupp and Nacua. It's Kyren in the backfield. And then Matthew Stafford's like a 2-quarterback league. He's a viable top 20-ish guy who's, viable in 2-quarterback leagues. Yep. It's very simple. And Kupp didn't have the game that Nacua did, but
still awesome.
5 for 92 and a touchdown. The
touchdown
was great. Exactly. Still earned 8 targets in this one.
Yeah.
There's no one else that's really sort of established himself. You see a little Tutu Atwell, DeMarcus Robinson in there as well. They throw the different tight ends out there, but it's very concentrated. Rams, by the way, have a really interesting schedule. Look at this. They're at San Francisco, whose defense played better yesterday, but they're still really beat up on that side of the ball. Then they're at your Jets, Connor. Home to Arizona, home to Seattle. Rams control their destiny for the playoffs.
They could run the table.
They could run the table easily, as you see it there on your screen, and they could easily win the division. I would think they're the betting favorite right now.
It's the Seahawks. So the Seahawks are a game up on them, so they're the favorite. But it's neck and neck. And if the Rams beat the Seahawks in Week 18, it's suspected that game may be winning in for the division, and the Rams will be favored there. But, the thing is with the Rams...
That feels like a Sunday Night Football. That feels like a flex to NBC. I wonder if we get that game.
That's probably the favorite, I think that with the Rams, since the midpoint of last season, whenever they've had Kupp, Kyren, and Puka on the field at the same time, it's been a historically efficient offense. And now that the O-line is healthy, I was watching the game yesterday, and it's like, why are the Rams that much worse than anything? If they're going to move the ball like that,
I think they're only 3-point underdogs to the Bills.
Yeah.
Going into that game.
Yeah.
As my point. And so then obviously then after winning that game, exactly.
I don't know. I'm not sure they're that much worse than the Packers or the Vikings. I think they're in the same tier as those teams.
We talked about this last night on the FNIA pod, the Football Night in America pod, where we talk more football than fantasy. But we just, the Rams, I think, are the one team that, Florio made this point, and I think he's right, that, the Lions do not want to see the Rams. They almost beat them last year in the playoffs. They almost beat them at the very beginning of this year. Same with the Packers. That's a scare that if they can get in, that's a scary team because fully healthy, the defense still has a few question marks.
Defense is not good.
Right, but so you can say that about a decent amount of the teams in the NFC. I don't know that there's one perfect team in the NFC. Lions may be closest, but their defense is, again, so beat up. So, and Eagles offensively have questions. So, anyway, the Rams could be scary in the playoffs for sure now that they're fully healthy.
Our next game, the Vikings get their 11th win of the season. They blow out the Falcons 42-21. Game kind of got crazy in the fourth quarter. Was a good game for the first 3 quarters because Sam Darnold throws 5 touchdowns. And the big beneficiaries of that, his wide receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Listen to what they had to say after the big day.
Y'all didn't know what we really had in this building. Y'all didn't really know how Sam was going to come in and be the leader that he is. That's Sam. That's something that we seen early on in training camp, and we had the confidence to give him the starting job, and for him to come out and to do what he has doing for this season, and especially today, is unbelievable.
He looked good, like he been doing, the whole season. He stepped up, made some throws when we needed it, and like I said a couple weeks ago, when the pressure on, he stepped up and played his best.
Unbelievable.
Darnold was awesome in this game. I mean, there was times where he was running for his life and just found a way to make a play.
He did. I mean, there were some breakdowns and coverages by the Falcons deep on a lot of those big plays, but still, like, whatever. He got the ball out. He got the balls to his playmakers. They did the rest as well. Sam Darnold absolutely crushing the Atlanta Falcons and backup producer Pete, all in the same game. More on that later.
Score here.
But, I think what's interesting, again, same thing here, is that similar to what we just talked about with the Rams, is that with the Vikings, again, Darnold's playing at a very high level. He's a QB1. He's a locked-in QB1. Their upcoming schedule, home to Chicago, at Seattle, because they love that. Home to Green Bay, at Detroit. So that's good. I mean, 3 division games in their next 4, which will be great. But what's nice is that all of them, 3 of them are in a dome, right? The game at Seattle obviously isn't, but home to Chicago, home to Green Bay, and at Detroit in Week 18 will all be indoors, which is good news, I think, for Darnold in this offense here. And it's a concentrated offense, as we talked about with the Rams. Same thing, right? It's Darnold, it's Jefferson and Addison, it's Aaron Jones as well.
Little Hawkinson action.
Yeah, a little Hawkinson as well. Obviously, you're gonna start Hawkinson because of the tight ends. But look, Jefferson, huge game for Justin Jefferson. We knew this was sort of coming. He'd been scoreless for too long. Like, the drought had been too long. Still getting all the targets here, but I just want to take a moment here to talk about Jordan Addison, right? It's his 4th straight game with a target share over 20%. Had ultimately 43% target share in this game, but his last 4 games, get this, Jordan Addison, 23.5 fantasy points per game. He's averaging a 29% target share. He's had 2 games in that 4-game stretch with 30 or more fantasy points. He has been a top 20 fantasy wide receiver over this last 4 games. The first 7 games of the season, he was kind of I guess I'm sort of desperate. Maybe Jordan Addison can get loose for one. I'll start him as a desperation wide receiver 3 and a 12. Now he's a locked-in top 20, got to start him. I don't care who the matchup is, wide receiver. He's been phenomenal over the last month.
Yep. No, he's been a monster, and that's tied in with Darnold. Sam Darnold's going to finish 5th or 6th at MVP. I don't think he's going to really compete for winning, but he's been incredibly good. And to your point, Connor, about his ability to create out of structure, and that's been the real key both in this game, last week against the Cardinals on the game-winning drive. Overall, under pressure, his numbers aren't amazing, but he does have these high-variance plays like that big, long touchdown to Jefferson. So, yeah, Darnold playing at a super high level. The Vikings are 11-2. Their win total coming into the season was 6.5.
Yeah. Kevin, I mean, it's weird because a lot of the team, Dan Quinn has mentioned a lot. Mike McDonald is starting to get some heat on Coach of the Year. Andy Reid's going to be there. I mean, they're
Dan Campbell's the favorite.
Dan Campbell, of course.
Yep.
Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, I should say. But Kevin O'Connell needs to be right in that mix. When you think about,
I think I would vote for him or Tomlin. I think those would be the 2 guys. What Tomlin has done has been pretty insane as well with the quarterbacks. Just resuscitating 2 different quarterbacks in the same season.
Tomlin's been great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Tomlin's been.
It's a strong field.
It's a strong field as well.
One of the better ones. It's weird because this award, you wonder, is it expectations, based results based on expectations, which would be O'Connell and Quinn.
Yeah.
The Vikings before the year, Commanders before the year, what were their win totals? 6.5 to 7.5.
6.5. Yep.
Yeah, and Commanders I think might have been 6.
Yep.
It was 6.
Right.
I mean,
we knew the Lions were going to be a wagon, and I love Dan Campbell, and if he wins, good for him.
Yeah.
But is it an award based on just results? Then Dan Campbell gets it. Is it results based on your expectations? Then Kevin O'Connell should run away with this award.
Yeah. I just think you take a step back and it's Sam Darnold is 11-2. That's fairly emphatic as a Coach of the Year case. It's pretty insane.
I mean, Sam Darnold, what did they sign him for? The league minimum, if that?
He got the classic backup quarterback deal, a 1-year deal. And they get the backup quarterback deals range from $7 to $12 million. But but once again, a 1-year deal doesn't.
Right.
Great contract year.
Yeah,
good time to be a free agent.
Exactly. Atlanta's sitting here, having lost 4 straight with their $100 million quarterback, and they just got beat by a guy making backup money on a 1-year prove-it deal because their starting guy got hurt in the preseason.
There's a very good chance that Sam Darnold's going to go 14-3. It's completely insane.
Yeah.
The Ravens last year had the 1 seed at 13-4.
Yeah. Let's move over to the Falcons side of the ball here, guys. And look, Kirk Cousins, from an NFL perspective, did not play great here. Has the 2 interceptions. He's gone now 4 straight games without a touchdown pass. It's unbelievable. But he looked better in this game.
He did look better. Two bad picks, though. They were bad picks. But outside of them, he did look much more functional. And he did have some very good throws.
He did. So I'm going to ask you, Jay Croucher, because on Fantasy Football Pregame, you and I made a wager.
Yes.
And you said I was dumping on Kirk Cousins. I think they boat race him is what I said. And I ultimately ended up taking the Vikings -6 against you. But you said, I think Kirk Cousins proves the critics wrong. We talked about could you see Michael Penix in this game at all as well. You said, I think he proves enough to get back. Do you think he proved enough here, Jay? I'll leave it to you as to whether or not you think you won that part of the bet.
No, I would say I lost that part of the bet. He wasn't as catastrophic, but he was bad. It was bad. The two picks are just unforgivable. They were both of the same ilk as the ones last week as well, which is the problem, where he had time and he made just the terrible decision both times. And I think the second one, the throw just got away from him, but at least he showed that he was able to put up, 300 plus passing yards, and he was able to get the ball around. He was able to move the ball down the field. But certainly I would think that, if he has another 2-pick, no touchdown game against the Raiders on Monday Night Football in primetime, then it might be over for Kirk.
Let me ask you guys this. So he's got the longer week, you get the extra day. The schedule is now a soft landing.
Yes.
It's the Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers. You got to go at least 3-1 in that stretch.
Yeah.
Is
the
that
big
more?
one is the Commanders game. The Panthers, the Panthers are going to be a tough out by week 18, right?
I think they've got the better quarterback in that game.
I would move to Penix now is where I was going.
Oh.
Instead of saying, this is a soft schedule, Cousins will be fine. No, go with the upside. Because if you go through this patch and you get into the playoffs, don't you want the ceiling?
Yeah,
not the
I agree.
floor?
They're not thinking.
They're
like
effectively
that.
0%.
That's poor management.
They're close to 0% to win the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. I think we've probably seen enough at this point. Michael Penix is probably, the median expectation for Penix might not even be better than Cousins, but at least he does have variance. At least he is something new, and he could be really good. And we've seen guys come in as rookies and be really good. CJ Stroud came in and was immediately a top 5 candidate for MVP, 6 weeks into his career. So it can happen, and he is the upside play.
Jaden Daniels is here.
Yeah.
From moment one, you were like, this team's now different.
100%.
The minute you saw Jaden Daniels, you were suddenly like, okay, the Commanders are potentially for real this year. They're on the road at Las Vegas. If he melts down against Antonio Pierce's defense, by the way, and the Raiders have kind of played plucky defense the last couple of weeks, and so that's not a gimme for the Falcons.
No.
On the road.
Nothing's a gimme for the Falcons
4-point
right
favorites.
now.
It's not ideal.
It is not. You buying it? The only other thing I want to, Tyler Algier, 9 for 63, he gets a touchdown, but Bijan still gets 24 touches in this game. Darnell Mooney, nice game, 6 for 142 on 7 targets. It's his second 20-point game this season. He's now had 14 or more fantasy points in 4 of the past 5 healthy games. We keep talking about Darnell Mooney as this viable wide receiver too. Are you buying Ray McLeod in this one, though? Third straight game with double-digit fantasy points, but just sort of I don't know, there's something about me that doesn't want to trust Ray McLeod.
I just think in the Kirk Cousins offense, it's hard to go with the 4th option and have trust in that because it's clearly Mooney, London, and Bijan are ahead of the pecking order in terms of touches and attention. The good thing is that the Falcons' defense isn't very good, and Cousins keeps throwing interceptions that get run back. So they are in these shootouts where they're needing to throw, but it is an easier final month. They should be in more run scripts.
It does, for those that are deeper leagues and you think about that schedule, how easy it is, it does make me think maybe some of the ancillary guys like Algier or McLeod could be usable again in super deep leagues as you head into the playoffs.
The Jets lose to the Dolphins in overtime 32-26, and it was a big resurgence finally for Tyreek Hill. He gets 14 targets, he catches 10 of them, 115 yards, and a touchdown, Jay. And on top of that, the good news was for Miami, it wasn't just Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle. Waddle also gets to 100 yards on 12 targets as well. Tua had both these guys rolling yesterday.
Yeah, 215 receiving yards combined. This is what we expected was going to happen and be like an every second week type of occurrence where these guys are going to combine for 200 plus. But Jets defense really banged up. Tua has quietly been playing very well when he's been out there. So perhaps not a surprise, but I think at least shows that you didn't know, are these guys injured? Is there something wrong with them? And it seems like they're just fine, and now they've worked their way into the offense for whatever reason, and they're throwing to someone who's not Jonnu Smith.
This is exactly what we expected it to be, and Achane, is involved more in the passing game, but ultimately 20 touches, gets into the end zone. Nice game for Achane. Jonnu Smith doesn't really get involved until the at the very
nothing,
end.
And then overtime he had 3 catches.
Yes,
it was
exactly.
all Jonnu Smith.
Right.
He had all 44 of his yards.
Correct. It was
really
all
bizarre.
the overtime. Really weird usage for Jonnu Smith given what he had been using. But we sort of to your point, Jay, the box score ended up looking like this is what we thought the Dolphins' offense was going to be all year long. Tyreek is the alpha. Jaylen Waddle is a very strong wide receiver too. Jonnu Smith with some upside here. And the running back, whoever was, whether it's Achane or Mostert was ruled out. Jalen Wright gets a couple of things, but ultimately it's Achane's backfield. Yeah, that's the Dolphins. And to your point, I think Tua has been and will continue to be a QB1, like a top 10 QB. He's been that over like the last 5 weeks. And I think he'll continue that into the playoffs as well. Dolphins are at Houston, home to San Francisco, at Cleveland, at the Jets. So that's the only interesting thing there is you've got 2 cold weather games there in week 17 and 18, and we know the narrative. But at least you feel good about them on the road at the Texans in the Dome in Houston, and then home to the Niners in week 16.
Yeah, and a weird game, guys, where Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, the Dolphins' top 2 wide receivers, get to 100 yards. Same thing for the Jets. Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson each get to Devontae 109 yards. He gets the touchdown, more importantly, Matthew. Garrett Wilson doesn't get a touchdown, but has 114 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
Rodgers, maybe best game as a J. He looked really good in this game.
He looked really good. This was a fun game. This was an entertaining game, better than I think you would have thought heading into it.
It was very entertaining.
Very entertaining. I did think Rodgers looked good. Both the wide receivers looked good. Over the last 4 weeks, Devontae Adams, despite the Jets' struggles, despite the inconsistency with Aaron Rodgers, over the last 4 weeks, Devontae Adams is averaging 18.9 fantasy points per game with a 28% target share. He's the 8th best wide receiver in fantasy football in the last month. Garrett Wilson, 3rd straight game with a 25% target share. Again, what we were just saying with Dolphins, this is what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be Adams and Wilson. Once Adams came over to the team, this is what it was supposed to be. I think the more interesting storyline from this game on the Jets side of the ball is the running backs. And shout out to you, Connor, who you said last week, guys, Isaiah Davis is going to be a thing.
Yeah, Isaiah Davis. Just take a listen, actually. We can just play it back.
Yeah, and I'll say this with Breece Hall. If you roster him and he's a big part of your playoff plans and you can't get Braelon Allen, pick up Isaiah Davis because Isaiah Davis will be the pass-catching back. Glass half full with Braelon Allen, I'll say, is he's going to get all the goal line work typically, although Isaiah Davis stole a touchdown last week inexplicably. And Rodgers is such a check-down merchant right now, Jay, that if you're out there, you have a chance to catch the ball no matter if you're Braelon Allen, Isaiah Davis. He's just getting the ball out at a ridiculous rate.
And the good news for Isaiah Davis, he didn't need that goal line work. He scored a touchdown from 17 yards out. And Matthew, both of these guys caught the ball. 7 catches between the both of them.
I mean, they were both involved. Davis gets the 6 targets. Allen gets the 5. Look, Rodgers ultimately threw it almost 40 times, 39 pass attempts for Aaron Rodgers. But you see it there on your screen. It was really an even split. 15 touches for Braelon Allen with 11 rushes, 4 receptions, and then 13 touches for Isaiah Davis. So, I mean, really just almost like a 55-45 split here in the backfield. And, Connor, I guess moving forward, do you think this is how it's going to be? I know the Jets have said publicly we're not shutting down Breece Hall. But given his injury history and where the season is, there's literally no reason to bring him back out there.
And it's a knee injury. This isn't he's not nursing a sprained finger or a joint sprain in his shoulder. It's a knee injury for a running back that's built on speed and explosiveness. I don't understand why the Jets are hinting that he could be back this year, but just the eye test.
Do you think that's just talk and that ultimately we're not going to see Breece Hall again?
There's a chance, but I do think it's a lot more chatter right now. You got to protect the player from himself.
Yes.
Breece is one of the most passionate players in that locker room. He wants to play.
Of course.
He doesn't care if we're out of the playoffs or not. We play football. We want to win each game. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I think they need to step in and protect the player from himself.
Yep. I do think one takeaway from this game is that, and we were speaking about this before, is that the Jets might be a little frisky down the stretch in terms of Wilson, Adams providing value. I think Rodgers probably wants to be out there. Rodgers, in theory, is kind of playing for it's a job audition for next season.
Numbers.
Yeah, and for his numbers as well. So, yeah, I think the Jets thought that season might just kind of wither away. They play some big games down the stretch. They play Buffalo in Week 17, these type of matchups, so the Jets may be heard from a little bit.
Yeah, sneaky factor, Olu Fashanu, their first-round pick, is taken over for Tyron Smith. He's been, I know it's crazy to say about a Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, he's been 8 levels above him. Rodgers is just sitting back there with the left side, perfect protection, and maybe the Jets' offense keep this up. They have Jacksonville next week.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yes. I mean, a lot of people, not just Rodgers, but a lot of people, the coaching staff and some of the players on that team are auditioning for jobs next year. You know what I mean? So they all want to play. Is Devontae Adams back with the Jets next year? Like, I mean, you know, there's a lot of questions. A lot again on the coaching staff. You mentioned the offensive line as well. Alan Lazard. Like, there's guys, you know, that
playing for jobs elsewhere.
That are playing for jobs elsewhere.
Yeah.
They want to put good football on tape.
The Jets are 3-point favorites in Jacksonville. Famous last words, but I think the Jets cover -3.
Yeah.
There's the better team than Jacksonville right now.
Yeah,
and they're more incentivized to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but going forward, I mean, like, we'll talk more about Isaiah Davis tomorrow, I'm sure. But
I would rank him ahead of Braelon Allen. By the way. Yeah. I thought the eye test, he just looked more explosive.
Yep.
Braelon Allen's a nice, power back, but Isaiah Davis, he just looked much more natural in every aspect of their offense. All right, our next game, a division matchup. The Seahawks win 30-18 on the road against Arizona. Massive implications for the division in this game. Matthew, the story was Kenneth Walker down. One of those weird practice weeks where things start to look really grim on Thursday. Zach Charbonnet has kind of become this old version of Alexander Madison, where when he's up, he's a big-time play. I mean, he had like 29 fantasy points at halftime.
He was unbelievable. He looked great. There were a lot of like big backup running back performances in this one. We just mentioned Braelon Allen, Isaiah Davis, both kind of good spot starts. We'll get to Guerendo here in a second. But to your point, Zach Charbonnet had the third best fantasy game by a running back this entire year. The Saquon Barkley 46-point game, the Alvin Kamara 44-point game, the only two games better than Zach Charbonnet. It's crazy because Allen had such a big game, because Nacua did, Jefferson. Feels like people aren't really talking about Zach Charbonnet's game the way they should, but just a massive, massive game for Zach Charbonnet. He's had to your point about when he gets an opportunity, he produces. 3 starts this year. In those 3 starts, he's averaging 23 touches a game. He's averaging 123 yards per game. And 27.3 fantasy points per game. I mean, he's an every down back stuck on a team that has another every down back. And I guess for fantasy purposes, we're happy because you sort of, when it's Ken Walker, that's the guy. When Walker's out, it's Charbonnet. Do you guys think, given this performance by Charbonnet, that he has now earned a bigger role, that even if KW3 comes back next week, now that suddenly it's a split?
I think that it's not so much about Charbonnet's performance, it's about that Ken Walker just cannot stay healthy, absorbing his workload. And so that, in conjunction with the performance, I would suspect that this is going to be a true alternating kind of series by series, more like Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren than the previous kind of workhorse type of division in this backfield.
This guy was a second-round pick when they already had Kenneth Walker. Yeah. That's how highly they've thought of him as an organization.
Sure. But it's a new regime.
Yes, but there's still a lot of the same people in that front office down, that the draft, they were part of the draft process.
And it's also 2 regimes who have seen Kenneth Walker in the training room every single week.
Charbonnet's just very good. Yeah. He's powerful. He's a natural pass catcher. I mean, I think they should be. It's kind of perplexing that they didn't split the time this season, which would have bothered us in fantasy, but in real football, that would have been very beneficial for them. So, I think going forward, when things matter the most, they should split the workload.
It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. They play the Packers next week at home, and then they're home to Minnesota, at Chicago, at the Rams. Tough schedule upcoming for the Seattle Seahawks as well. So something to sort of keep an eye on that, I have Ken Walker in our league, so I'm nervous about this. Backup producer Pete wanted to trade me Zach Charbonnet, and I wouldn't let him. He wanted Bucky Irving.
Did.
I know, believe me. He wanted Bucky Irving, and I'm like, I'm not trading Bucky Irving for a backup running back, and now I'm regretting that move. Maybe not. I think Bucky will be fine. He's been very good for me. Bucky has.
My friend Bucky.
My friend Bucky. Anyway, but I do think, given the potential increased workload by Charbonnet and a tough schedule for Seattle coming up, that's a little bit nervous. Honestly, we'll talk more about the running back as we get into it, but the other thing I just wanted to bring up real quickly is just sort of the wide receivers.
JSN, the number 1 wide receiver on Seattle now?
I think there's no question. Since DK Metcalf returned from injury in Week 11, JSN has outscored him every single game. All 4 games, he's been the better wide receiver. Another tough day fantasy-wise for DK Metcalf. JSN gets into the end zone. He looks like the better wide receiver. He's getting more targets as well. Tyler Lockett, feel free to drop him if you haven't already. But, yes, I would argue that Jackson Smith-Njigba is the number 1 wide receiver in Seattle, and I think, when you see my ranks this week, that'll be reflected.
Tough day for Arizona. Kyler Murray does head into Monday Night Football as the QB9, but we got to hear from Kyler Murray after the game on what's gone wrong during a tough stretch for the offense overall.
No, I don't. No need to press. I'm not looking at it like I gotta continue to press and try to be Superman. I don't think that's the answer. Just play within the offense, like we were doing for majority of the season. Today just didn't. We again, like I said, you throw 2 picks, put yourself behind the 8 ball in the NFL like that. It's tough.
What did you see on each of the interceptions?
It's on me. Just put it on me.
It's so crazy. You know, what's the weirdest part is, and this is the part that's just mind-boggling to me, that drives me nuts, and I wonder if they have a new offense coordinator next year. Kyler Murray isn't running. You've got one of the fastest guys in the NFL, and you see guys like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, mobile quarterbacks, and Jayden Daniels. And offensive coordinators use that speed to their advantage, that dual threat ability. And Kyler Murray, who's as fast as any of them, like he's right there. He has under 25 rushing yards in 4 of the past 6 games. And so, you know, in this one, Kyler Murray has 3 rushes for 16 yards. Like, it's Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something going on there where, particularly in the first Seattle matchup, he took a big hit and he stayed down for a long time. And then kind of after that, like he's throwing the ball away when he should just be trying to move and try to pick up first downs. It seems like he doesn't want to get hit at the moment, and so I'm just not sure if that's playing into something where, because I mean, otherwise he looks fine. He looks perfectly fast when he does move. It's just these picks have just been such backbreakers for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fine. Like the unfortunate part is, in terms of ride or die, he hasn't been ride or die. He hasn't been a smash the way that Amon-Ra or Jalen Hurts or Austin Eckler have the last couple of years have. But he's been fine. Like, again, to your point, he's going to finish the week as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Yeah. He's been fine, and he has a chance to get better. Here's their upcoming schedule after this week. Home to the Patriots, at the Panthers, at the Rams, home to San Francisco. So for the fantasy playoffs for the next 3 weeks, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, it's a nice schedule. I think he'll do a lot better on the stretch, and they're also winnable games. And the reason I bring up their winnable games, especially Patriots and Panthers, is because this is the other weird one on Kyler. In games in which the Cardinals win, Kyler's averaging 21.4 points per game. In losses, he's averaging 13.5. You'd think in losses it would be better, like junk time. Yeah. I mean, think about what Aaron Rodgers put up in a loss. Think about what Josh Allen put up in a loss, right? I mean, some of these quarterbacks, like you're down, you're trailing, wouldn't you be throwing more, and you're running, you're trying to, and whatever reason, like when they lose, like it's just, he's been bad.
Yeah. His issue there too is that the defense just isn't very good in Arizona, and they're just not getting him the ball back. It just feels like often it takes forever for him to get it back. Like yesterday,
but you'd think because of that, like there'd be, again, like bad defenses, positive game script for Kyler.
I agree. You'd hope for more in fantasy with that. That's kind of what you look into.
It just doesn't feel
like the Bengals with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But you know,
exactly.
But the thing is with the Bengals is they give up a touchdown immediately, so he just gets the ball back. The Cardinals show a bit more respite. They gash on the ground.
They make you grind it out.
James Conner, 22 touches in this game, as James Conner does. 4 catches, 32 yards, receiving touchdown, 18 carries for 90 yards on the ground.
He's James Conner.
Undervalued every single summer. We'll have the same conversation in August. James Conner's undervalued, underappreciated. He's very good.
It's like a version of Hunter Henry relative to position.
Even better.
Yeah,
right. Our last game here, guys. The Bears get blown out by the 49ers at San Francisco, 38-13. It feels like by halftime every game the Bears are just in this gigantic hole. Brock Purdy.
And now they're on the road at Minnesota next week.
Yeah, a very Jared Goffian stat line from Brock Purdy. 20-25, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. Juwan Jennings, big day, Matthew. George Kittle, massive day, 151 yards and just 6 catches.
Feels like, I mean, this felt like a Kittle game with kind of, the squeaky wheel, all that narrative like after the week before. But what was the 2 things that were interesting to me from this game is that, Brock Purdy looked like Brock Purdy again. Yeah. Like there was questions about the health, how banged up is he? He looked like Brock Purdy. He looked totally fine. He looked good. He got the ball. We love Juwan Jennings, who's at least 7 receptions and 90 receiving yards in 3 of the 4 games since Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings both returned from injury. So Jennings is a locked-in start no matter what. The running back position of the San Francisco 49ers is like the drummer in Spinal Tap. Right, I mean, it's just it's a revolving door, right? Yeah, is one of them going to spontaneously combust?
Starting to feel that way.
I'm starting it's so. I'm not trying to make light of people's injuries, but it's just insane that as somebody who drafted Chris McCaffrey and then drafted his backup, and then spent a lot of money on his backup's backup.
All the money.
All the money.
You know what I did, though?
You grabbed Patrick Taylor.
I grabbed Patrick Taylor, so I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
I'm not going through this.
Never again, like the Alamo.
Patrick Taylor would have been, the fifth stringer? Because Elijah Mitchell's also in that discussion as well. So, yeah, it's just insane. I mean, it's just bad luck. It is what it is. Guerendo was great before he got hurt. We'll have to see how that situation evolves. But, yeah, I think the two big stories out of this game are the Bears are a complete mess. And the Niners offense, when Purdy is healthy and when he has Juwan Jennings and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, this should still be an elite offense. And by the way, they just get to play the team that Josh Allen scored 50 touchdowns against on Thursday night. So should be a favorable matchup against the Rams.
Again, they play Thursday night. So who's going to get an MRI on the foot? They didn't think it was serious. This is Guerendo now. But it's a Thursday night game. So quick turnaround. It's a home game against the Rams at least. At least it's a home game. They're not leaving. And we'll know about early in the week at least, but just that's a bummer on Guerendo because he did look the part until he ended up getting hurt. Last thing here for me on this one, is Deebo Samuel still a must start?
No, it feels like it's been trending this way for weeks now.
3 targets in this game, 2 for 22.
Yeah. Not the manufactured gadgety kind of stuff at the rate you'd like it to be.
Just doesn't.
He's just not as good.
No, it's
weird. The body just took a toll when you're playing the way he was playing for years.
It's the running back. It's Kittle and Juwan Jennings is a must start, but
it's like the new Ayuk. It's like this year's Ayuk for them.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel right now is like DeMarcus Robertson. He's just the non-entity third guy in the passing.
Yeah, I don't know if he's that bad, but fantasy-wise, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like he's a much bigger name than production at this stage of the season.
Not much to take away from the Bears side. Rome Odunze gets the 2 touchdowns, which is great, but bad day for the Bears. Here's the injuries we're tracking from Week 14. We talked about Guerendo with the foot. We'll keep you updated on the short week. Jonathan Brooks,
this one looked bad.
Just awful with the knee injury that we'll get more clarity on how severe it is. It did not look good. The guy's coming off a torn ACL last October. It took a while to get back this season, and now dealing with a serious injury again, it looked like. Bucky Irving with back injury. Aiden O'Connell, another one that did not look good, gets pushed in the back, but was down on the turf for a long time. It's a knee injury. Derek Carr with that Superman-type leap, and he lands on apparently his left hand. We'll see if he's out for the rest of the season. Demarcus Robinson banged up again with the shoulder. Will Dissly banged up with a shoulder injury as well. A lot of really ugly-looking injuries on this card, guys.
Yeah, brutal. And feel for me just because Will Dissly was one of my bets for Football Night in America. Fourth time this year this year that I have made a bet and then that player has gotten hurt in the game.
You're a San Francisco running back.
I really am in terms of my betting on Football Night in America. It's
taking brutal. Our first break. When we're back, Weekend Warriors, Sunday Scaries. Right after this.
Middlesex Blue Jays, Ignite Athletics, and Chester.
Those are my daughters finding out they moved on to Super Saturday.
Weekend Warriors, Cheshire Cheer.
Cheshire Junior Cheer.
Cheshire Cheer Daddy.
Where do you go now?
Yeah. No. We went to nationals as
Globals?
well. No. I guess we actually have to be invited.
To Berlin.
There actually is globals. Yes, we'll see. But here is the routine, real quickly. We're going to show you just 20 seconds of this as well. Here's Cheshire Junior Cheer. These are my daughters in Orlando at the American Youth Cheer National Championship as well. Division 14, small level 2. Right here, this is my daughter right here, about ready to do these flips right here in the front. That's Brooke. It's my daughter, Brooke. Wow. And my daughter, Samantha, is a flyer on the left side of your screen going up there, very left side of your screen. But anyway, they did an absolutely great job at the end of the day. They ended up finishing 5th in the entire country.
It's amazing.
5th in the entire country. And you have to understand something. I just want to give a quick shout out here to all the coaches. Every coach that we have, Cheshire's a town of under 40,000. It's a small town, and every one of our coaches is all volunteer. The girls, they take if you sign up, you get to cheer, right? Yeah. They're not picking. Like the team that won the national title, Ignite Athletics, but by the way, they were great. But private gyms, private coaches.
They're like the Mets.
No, they're like the money. Right. A girl tries out and they can say, "Oh, you can go on our JV squad or whatever." Right. Like they take the best of the best.
AAU
they have private gym. It's an AAU. It's an AAU team competing against basically a local team. It's just not a fair fight. And so I was so proud of my girls, my daughters and their friends, their teammates to get there. Anyway, Fifth in the entire country.
Hold on.
Fifth
You'll have
in
to
the
see
entire
it.
country.
Samantha and Brooke.
Cheshire Cheer headlines the Weekend Warriors.
Yes. And this is a shirt from that competition, wearing that in honor of them.
Followed by them, Matthew, is Rachaad White. 17 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. Also gets 2 catches and a touchdown.
Also another Weekend Warrior.
Yes, a much lower tier, but he does qualify as 125 fantasy points, RB3 going into Monday Night Football.
Yeah, and on the hate list this week. This week. Good job, Barry. Look, a lot of this was opportunistic because Bucky Irving gets banged up, leaves this game early as well. Set season highs in snap rate and rush rate. We'll see the injury, how serious it is to Bucky Irving, but it was nice. Baker was dealing early and caught the touchdown early. Rachaad White's been getting more and more involved as well. Also, nice to see Jalen McMillan, who we had the really nice training camp. We're like, we think this guy's going to be out there, but out of the bye, great to see him get a season high in target share, 25%. His first touchdown since week number 1 as well. McMillan very quietly at least 1 end zone target in 3 of the past 5 games. We'll talk about him more tomorrow. Probably more of a deep league guy as well.
Yep.
Some Panthers headline the list here as well. Chuba Hubbard gets 26 carries, 92 yards and a touchdown. Adam Thielen gets 11 targets. He catches 9 of them for over 100 yards.
Yep, I'd say 2 stories here. Jonathan Brooks getting hurt. Chuba Hubbard should have a lot of work going forward. And Thielen, again, like Bryce Young, again, led his team down the field to effectively win the game, but the touchdown pass at the end was dropped. So Bryce Young, he is playing at a much improved level, and I think we have enough sample now to treat this as a real, and Thielen's his number 1 option.
Yeah, Bryce has been better than Stroud now for 6 weeks or so.
Yep.
It's not a dead-end combo yet, but it's just
creating
it's
out of
been
structure,
crazy
accurate.
to watch. Tyrone Tracy also here, Matthew, 16 carries, 45 yards and a touchdown. More importantly in fantasy, also catches 5 passes for 38 yards against a struggling Saints defense.
6th straight game with 65 or more scrimmage yards. It was his season high in target share. Look, the Giants aren't good, but they look slightly better with Drew Lock. I mean, again,
Move the ball down the field at the end.
They did at least, right? Better than with Tommy DeVito at least. It was he's had 14 fantasy points or more in 3 of the past 4 games, 3 touchdowns during that span. There's not a lot working for the Giants, but at least Tyrone Tracy is in a low-end RB2, high-end flex way.
David Njoku catches 7 of 13 targets. 13 targets for Njoku, only 42 yards, but more importantly, Jay gets a touchdown in a game where the Browns were really chasing points.
Yeah, 4 yards per target isn't amazing as a return, but he does get in the end zone. He's got the rapport with Jameis. The Browns, I think they're going to be losing a lot of games down the stretch. They have a tough schedule, so Njoku should be getting activity in a pass.
A letdown after the Monday night game, and Winston just didn't have a good game here. Credit the Steelers. So the fact that Njoku was able to produce that in a game in which Jameis was mostly bad Jameis, and the Steelers defense really good, I think is encouraging for Njoku and his managers.
The Lord didn't deliver him from...
No, but he did. There were no pick sixes.
There's no pick sixes, but...
It was delivered. The Lord answered the prayers.
Right. So maybe he should have been more broad.
I was going to say...
That's on Jameis. That's not on the Lord.
Thank you. I agree with Jay.
That's fair.
That's right. Man. That's on Jameis.
That's a good job by the Lord.
Exactly.
He did follow through with the prayer promise.
The Lord heard what Jameis asked for and delivered it.
Yes, specifically exactly what he asked for.
Sunday Scaries. A.J. Brown, only 4 catches on 4 targets for 43 yards. We got to hear from A.J. Brown after the game on what's wrong with the Eagles, and he gave a direct answer.
Offense wasn't good enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve on? Passing.
I like that.
Oh, that side eye as well. What needs to be improving? The passing. You know what's weird is he's right. There were plays where A.J. Brown's like wide open and Hurts just didn't see him. On the other hand, they won the game. Jalen Hurts didn't turn the ball over during their entire winning streak here. He's got only 2 turnovers. Like, they're limiting him, right? But it's working. He's got 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown does over his last 7 games. You're still starting him, but he's much more wide receiver 2 than wide receiver 1 moving forward, just because the volume isn't there.
Rare off day, Jay, for Brock Bowers. He catches 3 of 5 targets for 49 yards. The Raiders under O'Connell, just the pass game wasn't really clicking.
Yeah, O'Connell, he gets hurt. He wasn't very good before he got hurt. It looks like the Desmond Ridder show going forward.
Oofa.
We need to see what he looks like, his rapport with Brock Bowers. And then the last one, and again, this is a sad one, Nick Chubb. He goes 11 for 48, a bit more efficient than he's typically been. But at this point, with the amount of time, or the lack of time that they're in a run script, I think we're going to see a lot more Jerome Ford relative to Nick Chubb going forward.
Taking our last break. When we're back, Monday Night Football preview with our best bets, Bengals, Cowboys, right after this. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crown
is yours!
Yours. Woof. It's yours.
Last call. Here's the most bet Monday Night Football props on DraftKings. 4 bets for Jamar Chase, all ranging from 50 to 80-plus receiving yards. The odds ranging from -110 to the very pathetic -475. Micah Parsons sacks, over a quarter sack. So a half sack from Micah Parsons is at -130. Very interesting. Jay, what do you like?
Running with the public, running with Micah Parsons,
I like that one.
taking him over quarter sack at -130. So Micah Parsons, he's averaging 5.4 pressures per game. For context, TJ Watt is averaging 2.9. Parsons he missed the month. He's played 5 fewer games than a lot of these guys. If Parsons had played a full 13 games, he would have 70 pressures. The leader in the NFL right now, Jonathan Grenard, has 60. So Parsons is playing at a best pass rusher in the NFL type of level. Against the Bengals O-line that's been a bit shaky, I think he can get at least half a sack against Joe Burrow.
What about you, Matthew?
Well, I just heard that DraftKings is the best place to bet on touchdowns. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bet on a touchdown. I'm taking Jake Ferguson anytime touchdown. It's at +290, guys. Bengals have allowed the second most touchdowns to tight ends this season. They've also allowed a touchdown to a tight end in 4 straight. So Ferguson in his first game back in a game that should be high scoring. Give me Jake Ferguson anytime touchdown at +290.
I'm with you all the way. I'm going Jake Ferguson over 37.5 receiving yards. I think the number's only that low because he's coming back from a significant concussion, but the Cowboys have said he's a full go. He's healthy. He's been able to practice with contact. Like you said, Matthew, the Bengals have been shaky against tight ends this year, especially recently. I think a pretty decent night for Ferguson where hopefully Dallas is chasing points and they're throwing him the ball.
For sure. I think a lot of fantasy games will be decided, a lot of fantasy matchups, playoffs hopes, as well as you see some of our games there. Obviously, you're starting Chase and Higgins. I have Higgins and Lamb in 2 different guillotine leagues, and the person I'm facing elimination against has the other guy in each of those leagues. So I need at least one of them to go off. It'll be interesting to see if Brandon Cooks can continue the work that he got last week. Dowdle I have as a top 15 play. Chase Brown, of course, is a locked-in RB1 tonight.
I need Brandon Cooks to not get 16 points in our league. And
I
beat producer Pete. But the game's over. The game's already over.
Right, of course. If you want a rooting interest, Brandon Cooks under 16 points. Connor wins over 16 points. Backup producer Pete. It's a win or go home scenario in the League of Assholes. Congratulations to Juan Soto and your Mets.
I'd love to see it. He pays for everybody's drinks at the happy hour bar.
Everybody drinks as well. Listen, a New York team getting a big name guy, it never goes wrong, right? For Connor and Jay and Matthew. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.